Hi, welcome to another video on the target individual experience, the target individual ex program. Tonight, I'm going to talk about propaganda. I'm going to also share some information also on mind control technology. Okay. But first, let's talk about my targeting in this program and what has been going on. So as you guys would know, I've uploaded videos taken directly from my cell phone, and I try to narrate at best what is happening. Now, also one aspect of how they target me is that they have their agents on Facebook. For example, these two, okay, well, this one here, she's newly recruited. Her name is Chantel Cooper. This one, Mary E. Potterfield, has been an agent that I've been keeping an eye on in terms of how she comments on things that I post, and also if somebody posts something and I comment on it, she will comment on it also to try to cause some sort of divisionary tactics. Okay, so for example, right, and I'm gonna show you guys. So here is a comment. Now here's something that I posted. I said, I remember when calling a woman a B word, H word was fighting words. Now they calling themselves and each other B words, H words. I said, I remember when saying suck my to a black woman could get you jumped. Now they're screaming, I'll suck your, and telling you to suck that. I remember when black women wear lingerie in the bedroom and around the house. Now they're wearing lingerie in club and out in the streets. Again, this is part of the conditioning of black people, particularly black women, in this fashion. Okay, because you will go to a party and you will see black women wearing lingerie in the party, like, you know, it's party wear. I remember when we used to get dressed up, you know, had to have a button-down shirt or at least a nice sweater, slacks, and shoes in order to go to a party. I mean, this is what I remember. Okay, now sneakers, boots, jeans, whatever, hanging out. But again, you know, it's a different party. You know, you were more going to like Caribbean parties instead of like hip hop parties, right? But even in some clubs that do hip hop and, you know, combination, you have to be dressed up. So this person wrote, I remember when men started writing songs saying bees ain't shite and shit and H and tricks. So I said, you know, in other cultures, you know, men have called their counterparts, the women, that also. But what has been done to us as black people, okay, is you know, particularly where you have black women competing with men, trying to compete with men in what men do and what men say. Other cultures don't do that. You don't see when Japanese men call Japanese women that same names, what have you. Japanese women don't go around saying, you know, as a large portion of them go around calling each other those names. Same thing with Caucasian women. Same thing with Hispanic women. Same thing with Arab women. Okay, only black women, and particularly black American women, do that. Black women in Africa don't do that. In countries in Africa don't do that. Okay, and well, I shouldn't even say only the United States, but in Britain, in any Western country that have a large black population, this is what happens. And so a lot of women will defend these things, okay? Because they'll say, well, the men did it, right? Now, which other group of women, you know, say that? Well, the men's saying it, so we should say it, you know? So anyway, so I just kind of like just giving some information, and I was told I was speaking down to women. I'm like, no, I'm not speaking down to women. See, how we're conditioned, particularly black women, is that when black men speak the truth, when black men, because again, this is white supremacy war on black men. Okay, never mind the fact that I'm a TI, but this is white supremacy war on black men, and they use divide and conquer tactics. And if they can change, which they have changed the mindset of the women, because remember, black women are the mothers of civilization. They are the first gods that we as human beings knew. Okay? They were. And what they have done, what white supremacists have done, is that they have taken the nurturing, the wisdom from the mindset of black women, and have created a male mentality in the minds of black women. And that's the truth. And this is, again, the power of psychological conditioning, right? And also, which coincide with, again, the use of these technologies and manipulation, which I'm going to talk about. All right, particularly propaganda. Okay, and so, anyway, so I started posting relevant information, facts that they don't want to talk about, because again, facts and truth is something they run from. Okay, they have been conditioned with a delusional and a mentality that based on fantasy, and so they want to be in a fantasy state all the time. Okay, besides trying to get the bag, as they say. Okay, so so I made this comment. This was a while ago, right? So again, I talk about how this is a video I post from a very one of the black women that I follow on YouTube, and talks about how black female leadership destroyed the black community, and she makes some very valid, interesting point. Okay, and then I post about the breakup of the black family, imperial gains of decades, and talk about how the welfare system was used to destroy the black family, and also how mass incarceration has destroyed the black family. So I'm not squarely saying it's black women's fault. I'm not even saying that. What I'm saying is that because how we are conditioned, and the fact that a lot of black people don't want to believe that they can be manipulated and conditioned to behave and act and think negatively. But the reality shows that's exactly what happened. So the disconnect from the reality is something that they don't even want to realize. Okay, so I posted this a while ago, and so I got this popped up not too long ago, commenting. Of course, you got to bring the God into it, so then that's how I knew, yeah, she's a paid agent, she's a troll agent, so she's like, thank God I'm so well rounded, and I know that religion isn't always a topic of discussion when solutions are given to the collective. Right? Yeah, this was all about Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels was a Christian, but he is the dysfunctional. But he's the dysfunction people gravitate to, is the point. No, he wasn't dysfunctional. The man was pointing out the dysfunctionality within black people, black men and women. You see, for 3 years, this man was talking about black men and what we must do. Okay, what we must do, what we shouldn't do, what we needed to do to become high value, the type of man that a certain type of quality woman would want to marry. Right? Nobody paid attention. But as soon as he starts interviewing women and they themselves show how delusional they are and how much they don't know, even though they claim that, they have PhDs. Okay. So, yeah, you are not trying to demonize Kevin Samuel's name, even though he was a Christian. Now, I'm not into religion. Okay. But he is one Christian that I follow because he puts reality above, anything else. Yes, he talks about his God or what have you and being Christian. And what he says that a lot of these Christian women don't like is he called them conditional Christians. They will always quote scriptures that suit their narratives, and they don't like that. And it is my belief that they killed this man. Okay, without a doubt. All right. And so when black women celebrate his death, it's to show you how warped their mentality has become. Okay. So anyway, yep, she's a troll. Definite troll. All right. So you gotta watch it. Like I said, I know how to spot them. And I know how to spot them. Okay. Because they waited until I get home to now want to comment. I posted this hours ago. All right. So the fact that when I uploaded my videos on my way home, about a few minutes later was when that message popped up. And so far, I have not received any other message on, well, except for, I think, no, yeah. So I haven't received any other message or any other notification on Facebook. So yeah, troll. Anyway, let's get back to what this video is really about. But I gotta expose the trolls. So I talk about propaganda a lot because one of the tools that they use against us as TIs is propaganda. And that propaganda, though sometimes it can be based on truth, but sometimes that truth can be manufactured, right? So for example, let's say you went out and they drug you, set you up with a prostitute, and then you get an STD, right? And so they know this, so they'll say, look, we got pictures of him sleeping with a prostitute, and and they may say, well, now you got to watch out for him because he's got an STD and this and that and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's true. But guess what? That was a setup, but it's true. But it was a setup. Okay. So understand that propaganda can be based on truth, but sometimes what's true can be created, and it's not in the best interest of the TI. So I'm going to read a few paragraphs from this article. Okay. It's about Edward Benet. And it's called The Manipulation of the American Mind, Edward Benet and the Birth of Public Relations. This article comes from the Conversation, written by who was this written by? Richard Gunderman. Okay, he is a Chancellor Professor of Medicine, Liberal Arts, and Philanthropy. Okay. So, the most interesting man in the world reached out and touched someone. Finger looking good. Such advertising slogan have become fixtures of American culture, and each year millions now tune into the Super Bowl as much of the ads as for the football. While no single person can claim exclusive credit for the ascendancy of advertising in American life, no one deserves credit more than the man most of us have never heard of, Edward Benet. I first encountered Benet's through an article I was writing on propaganda, and it quickly became clear that he was one of the 20th century foremost salesman of ideas. The fact that 20 years have elapsed since his death provides a fitting opportunity to re-examine his legacy. Benet's pioneer public relations. Often referred to as the father of public relations, Benet in 1928 published his seminal work, Propaganda, in which he argued that public relations is not a gimmick but a necessity. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the mass is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. It is they who pull the wires that control the public's mind. Benet came into his belief honestly. Born in Australia in 1891, the year Sigmund Freud published one of his earliest papers, Benet was also Freud's nephew twice over. His mother was Freud's sister Anna, and his father, Early Benet, was the brother of Freud's wife, Martha. The year after his birth, the Benet family moved to New York, and Benet later graduated from Cornell with a degree in agriculture, but instead of farming, he chose a career in journalism, eventually helping the Woodrow Wilson administration promote the idea that U.S. effort in World War I was intended to bring democracy to Europe. Benet's rebrands propaganda. Having first effective propaganda could be, I don't know what the hell I was looking at. Having seen how effective propaganda could be during war, Benet wondered whether it might prove equally useful during peacetime. Yet, propaganda had acquired a somewhat pejorative connotation, which would be further magnified during World War II. So Benet promoted the term public relations. Drawing on the insight of his uncle Sigmund, a relationship Benet was always quick to mention, he developed an approach he dubbed the engineering of consent. Okay? And you guys should read also Noam Chomsky, The Age of Consent. Okay? It's very, very insightful book on how people can manipulate you to give them consent to anything that they want. He provides leaders the means to control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowing about it. Let me read that again. He developed an approach he dubbed the engineering of consent. He provided leaders the means to control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowledge about it, without their knowing about it. To do so, it was necessary to appeal not to the rational part of the mind, but the unconscious. Benet acquired an impressive list of clients ranging from manufacturers such as General Electric, Procter & Gamble, and the American Tobacco Company, to media outlets like CBS, and even politicians such as Calvin Coolidge. To counteract President Coolidge's stiff image, Benet organized pancake breakfast and White House concert with Al Johnson and other Broadway performers. With Benet's help, Coolidge won the 1924 election. Benet's publicity campaign was the stuff of legend. To overcome sales resistance to cigarette smoking among women, Benet staged a demonstration at the 1929 Easter Parade, having fashionable young women flaunt their torches of freedom. He promoted Lucky Strikes by convincing women that the forest green hue of the cigarette pack was among the most fashionable of colors. To succeed, the success of this effort was manifested in innumerable window display and fashion shows. In the 1930s, he promoted cigarettes as both soothing to the throat and slimming to the waistline. But at home, Bonet was attempting to persuade his wife to kick the habit. One would find a pack of her parliaments in their home, he would snap every one of them in half and throw them in the toilet. While promoting cigarettes so soothing and slimming, Bernays, it seems, was aware of some of the early studies linking smoking to cancer. Again, as TIs, I keep saying that when we're targeted with these weapons, the damage that it causes, and they know this, and they lie to the perps, the people, our family who they manipulate into participating and targeting us. They lie to them. Okay, this is why they don't want us going to the doctors. They don't want us getting MRIs, X-rays. They don't want us taking our medications because they want to lie. Okay, so they will use the police as intimidation tools to threaten, to arrest, to shoot, to incarcerate, to institutionalize you if you do those things. Okay, but they know the truth. Okay, and they know that I know. Okay, I've done far too many research. I've exposed too much so that they can think that they can continue to fool the majority of people. Okay, but I know that there are a lot of people out there who have read what I've exposed. Okay, and some of these documents come straight from the government, the CIA, the FBI, whatever governmental agency, Department of Health and Social Service. So when I speak of these things, I don't talk in an opinionated manner. Okay, I'm going to give you the source, the facts. Okay, because it's important that we that we understand, that we know the truth. We've been lied to about everything. Anyway, Benet used the same techniques on children to convince kids that bathing could be fun. He sponsored soap sculpture competition and floating contests. These were designed to prove that ivory bars was more buoyant than competing products. Benet also used fear to sell products. For Dixie cups, Benet launched a campaign to scare people into thinking that only disposable cups were sanitary. As part of this campaign, he founded the Committee for the Study on and Promotion of Sanitary Dispensing of Food and Drink. Benet's idea sold a lot more than cigarettes and Dixie cups. Even though Benet saw the power of propaganda during war and used it to sell products during peacetime, he couldn't have imagined that his writings on public relations would become a tool of the Third Reich. I keep coming back to this because I want people to understand that the people who are running these things, the shadow government, they are in fact Nazis. Okay, they are, and they believe in the Nazi ideology, which is, again, is not originally to the German Nazis. Okay, it came straight out of America, and particularly a lot of it, some of it, including with the propaganda, came out of Benet's writing, as I just read. Okay, but a big part of it came out of the the American eugenics movement. Okay, white supremacists. That's who they were. All right, so in the 1920s, Joseph Goebbels became an avid admirer of Benet's and his writing. Despite the fact that Benet was a Jew, when Goebbels became the Minister of Propaganda for the Third Reich, he sought to exploit Benet's ideas to the fullest extent possible. For example, he created a Führer cult around Adolf Hitler. Benet learned that the Nazi was using his work in 1933 from a foreign correspondence for Hearst newspaper. He later recounted in his 1965 biography, "They were using my book as a basis for the destructive campaign against the Jews of Germany. This shocked me, but I knew any human activity can be used for social purpose or misused for antisocial ones. What B'nai B'rien furnished is not a principle nor or tradition by which to evaluate the appropriateness of propaganda, but simply a means of shaping public opinion for any purpose whatsoever, whether beneficial to human beings or not." This observation led Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter to warn President Franklin Roosevelt against allowing Bernays to play a leadership role in World War II, describing him and his colleagues as professional poisoneers of the public mind, exploiters of foolishness, fanaticism, and self-interest. Today we might call what Bernays pioneered a form of branding, but at its core it represents little more than a particular brazen set of techniques to manipulate people to get them to do your bidding. Its underlying purpose in large part is to make money by convincing people that they want something they do not need. Bernays sought to turn citizens and neighbors into consumers who use their purchasing power to propel themselves down the road to happiness. Without a moral compass, however, such a transformation promotes a patronizing and ultimately cynical view of human nature and human possibilities. One is likely to destroy lives as to build them up. Okay? So just, I wanted to read this because I wanted to make you guys understand how powerful propaganda is, and how when we're in this coercive persuasion program, that it is programming us through our unconscious state of mind, right? Our subconscious. And I've always said this, that until you understand how you've been programmed, then you won't be able to change the behavior and how they program you. Because remember, they program you into a negative way of thinking, a negative way of being. It is a dysfunctional way, okay? It is turning right wrong and wrong right. It is making you think that behaving negatively, whether it be physically, verbally, what have you, will yield some sort of reward. But again, it's all manipulation of your mind. Then they can label you as being schizophrenic or what have you with these technologies that they beam, commands or phrases into your mind. Okay. But this is not like V2K, right? This is silent sound. This is the co-opting of your conscious mind. This is you hearing your own inner voice. Okay? And because you have no clue of the technology, you think it is you that is thinking these things, but it's not you. It is being put into your mind by an external source. Okay? And again, microchipping you is for the feedback, right? Which is remote neural monitoring. Again, this is, like I said, this is going to be done to a lot more people if people don't wake up and start listening to what we have to say as TIs. They might label all of us as being crazy, but if you provide them with the information from their own agencies, they can't call you crazy. Because if they call you crazy, that means that they're crazy also. Okay? So, Pulse. This is from Dr. Nick Begich. This is his website. Very, very important website. A lot of the things that I've learned about the technology comes from him. Finding out these technology and stuff like that. And, he got into this stuff because his father was a senator, right? And his father died in a plane crash, and he believed that the United States government and the security agencies were responsible for that because his father was, very vocal, about human rights abuse and the use of weapons and stuff like that. And so, he dedicated himself, his life to exposing, these things. So if you can go on Earth Pulse and you can download these documents, okay, these papers that you can read for yourself, okay. And so I'll first start with this document here. It's called Mind Control, okay. Mind Control, the ultimate brave new world. Technologies for stimulating the brain and controlling the mind can have benefits, but they also have a dark side that military and intelligence planners have been exploiting for decades. Now let's look at when this was written. All right, this was written in 2006, and he's talking about the intelligence agencies and the military. That they have been exploiting this technology for decades, using it on unsuspecting civilians. Okay, so it would also appear possible to create high fidelity speech in the human body, raising the possibility of covert suggestion and psychological direction. Thus, it may be possible to talk to selected adversaries in a fashion that would be most disturbing to them. U.S. Air Force New World Vista, Air and Space Power for the 21st Century. The idea that the brain can be made to function at a more efficient and direct level have been the subject of research by scientists, mystics, health practitioners, and others for as long as mankind has contemplated such matters. In the last decade, advances in the science of the brain have begun to yield significant results. The results of the research are startling, challenging, and, if misused, will be frightening. The certainty to be expected from the research is that it will continue to proceed. The idea that people can be impacted by external signal generators which create, for example, pulse electromagnetic fields, pulse light, and pulse sound signal is not new. The following information demonstrates some of the possibilities and give hints of the potential of the technology. On the positive side, researchers in the field of light and sound are making huge progress in a number of areas, including working with learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, stroke recovery, accelerated learning, drug alcohol addiction, and enhanced human performance. The research has shown that certain brain states can be influenced in a way which causes changes within the brain itself. These changes allow individuals the possibility of influence specific conditions in the mind and body otherwise thought beyond our direct control. The military and other interested in such things have also focused a large amount of research into this area for the purpose of enhancing the performance of soldiers while degrading the performance of adversaries. What is known is that great stride in the area of behavior control is now possible with systems developed and under development by most sophisticated countries on the planet. These new technologies represents a much different approach to warfare, which our government is describing as part of the revolution in military affairs. While these new technologies offer much for military planner, they offer even more to citizens generally. Their potential use in military application and peacekeeping creates the need for open debate of this new realm of intelligence gathering, manipulation, and warfare. The most basic ethical question regarding use of these technologies have not been adequately addressed. At the time, At the same time that defense and intelligence gathering capabilities are being sought, independent researchers are fully engaged in seeking positive use for the technology. The potential for technology, like all technologies, are great as both a destructive and constructive force for change. The idea of enhancing physical and mental performance while bypassing what they heretofore was a long and arduous road to achieve the same result is exciting. Maintaining the research in the open literature and ensuring that constructive use are encouraged is critical. I began looking into technologies for stimulating brain performance about 15 years ago. At the time, there were limited tools available compared to what is now possible. Now, it is possible to obtain light and sound, electrocranial, and biofeedback tools for use in this exploration. Moreover, there are audio materials also available for use with most of these tools. These audio materials can be used for learning language, behavior modification, or enhanced performance. The biofeedback side of the new technology is being used to train people to reach specific desired brain state for optimal performance. The use of light and sound device for stimulating brain activity, which is conducive to accelerated learning and relaxation, is a growing area of interest to many people. Moreover, the use of these tools in conjunction with biofeedback has been the subject of quickly evolving research. The combined technologies of brain state inducement and the biofeedback offer exciting possibilities. It has been found with the combination that a person, in a matter of several weeks, can learn to modify purposefully her brain activity in a way which would have taken a Zen master 20 years to accomplish. It has been shown that some children with attention deficit disorder can be taught to regulate their brain activities so that they can learn efficiently without chemicals. It has been demonstrated that recovering stroke victims can be more rapidly recovered when working with brain biofeedback practitioners and these new tools. The research is also teaching us a good deal of our suggestibility in terms of influence, which have an impact on our behavior. The underlying message that comes from the new technology is the necessity of providing safeguard against misuse. Additionally, recognition of the everyday stimulation we all get and the effect of these information input on our learning process becomes more clear. The suggestibility of humans, particularly when in a fragile condition, has been exploited by terrorist cults and others in pursuit of their own aims. The passive suggestibility of radio and television as we wave in and out of a semi-sleep state is for the most part not even recognized. The passive learning situation becomes even more relevant when we consider how we receive the news in our daily lives. The ability to influence thinking, behavior, and performance is indeed a two-edged sword. The 1980s and 1990s will focus on building up the physical body. The 21st century will see a focus on building the mind and optimizing mental performance. The idea of merging the new technology into education is interesting, as also calls into question who will decide what is to be learned. In the interim, the possibilities are incredible for those interested in such pursuit. The control of our mental function is no different than the control of the muscles in our body. Learning to control or coordinate the activities of our mind will propel our bodies through a much more productive and full life. The new tools may offer such opportunities. Okay, so let's go down here. MK Ultra. Dr. Goblet, born August 3rd, 1918, was the CIA real-life Doctor Strange a brilliant biochemist who designed and headed MK Ultra, the agency's most far-reaching drug and mind control program at the height of the Cold War. Though the super secret MK Ultra was ended in 1964, a streamlined version called MK Search was continued with Goblet in charge until 1972. During this period, substantial interest in mind control was stimulated by Soviet use of microwave. In 1988, 35 years after security officers first noticed that the Soviets were bombarding the U.S. Embassy in Moscow with microwave radiation, the U.S. government still has not determined conclusively or is unwilling to reveal the purpose behind the beams. The U.S. government did know what was happening. The Soviet had developed method for disrupting and purposeful thought of humans and were using their knowledge to impact diplomats in the United States Embassy in Moscow. In 1994, a report concerning the MK Ultra program was issued containing the following information. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA engaged in an extensive program of human experimentation using drugs, psychological, and other means in search of techniques to control human behavior for counterintelligence and covert action purposes. In 1973, the CIA purposefully destroyed most of the MK Ultra files concerning its research and testing on human behavior. In 1977, the agency uncovered additional MK Ultra files in the budget and physical records that were not indexed under the same MK Ultra. These documents detail over 150 sub-projects that the CIA funded in this area, but no evidence was uncovered at that time concerning the use of radiation. The CIA did investigate the use and effect of microwave on human beings in response to the Soviet practice of beaming microwave on the U.S. Embassy. The agency determined that this was outside the scope of the advisory committee purview. The Church Committee found some records, but also note that the practice of MK Ultra at the time was to obtain no records of the planning and approval of test program. MK Ultra itself was technically closed out in 1964, but some of its work was transferred to the Office of Research and Development, ORD, within the DS&T under the name MK Search and continued into the 1970s. The CIA worked closely with the Army in conducting the LSD experiments. This connection with the Army is significant because MK Ultra began at the time that Secretary of Defense Wilson issued his 1953 directive to the military service on ethical guidelines for human experiments. Throughout the course of MK Ultra, the CIA sponsored numerous experiments on unwitting humans. After the death of one such individual, Frank Olson, an Army scientist, was given LSD in 1953 and committed suicide a week later. An internal CIA investigation warned about the dangers of such experiment. The CIA persists in this practice for at least the next 10 years. After the 1963 IG Inspector General report recommended termination of unwitting testing, Deputy Director of Plans Richard Helms, who later became Director of Central Intelligence, continued to advocate covert testing on the grounds that positive operational capability to use drugs is diminishing, owing to the lack of realistic testing. With increasing knowledge of state-of-the-art, we are less capable of staying up with the Soviet advances in this field. Okay, let me scroll down through here. Mind wars. Okay, for the first time in some 500 years, a scientific revolution has begun that will fundamentally change the world as much as the Renaissance and Enlightenment did. A handful of extraordinary new advances in science are taking humans quickly and deeply into areas that will have profound implications for the future. One of these areas is control of the human mind. The issues surrounding behavior modification, mind control, and information warfare become crystal clear as the facts unfold. The following is taken from the current military document, The Information Revolution and the Future Air Force, by Colonel John A. Warden III, USAF, which clarifies their position in the emerging areas of research, taking a much different direction than the one described above. We are currently experiencing on an unprecedented global basis 3 simultaneous revolutions. Anyone which would be more than enough to shock and confound us. The first revolution, a geopolitical revolution, sees a single dominant power in the world for the first time since the fall of Rome. The opportunities that are inherent in this situation are extraordinary, as are the pitfalls. Unfortunately, there is no one around that has first-hand experience in how to deal with that kind of single power domination. The second revolution, and there's a lot of discussion about this so far, is the information revolution. As other people have mentioned, it is following inexorably in tandem behind Moore's laws of computing power. Attendant to it, though this is not the creation of new ideas and technology, but also an exponential growth in the velocity of information dissemination, and and for us, that is of extraordinary importance. A key part of this information revolution has an awesome impact on competition. The business that introduced a new product 10 years ago could count on probably 5 years before it had to look seriously at potential competitors based overseas. Today, you're lucky if you can count on 5 months or even 5 weeks before you are facing the overseas competitors. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of it. The third revolution, which is a little bit more complex, is the military technological revolution, or in some places called the revolution in military affairs. I'm convinced that this is the first military technology revolution ever, because we now have, for the first time, a conceptually different ways to wage war. We can wage war in parallel now. In the past, communications and weapons technology, especially weapon accuracy, have constrained us to wage in serial war. This changed almost everything. Biological process control. As we look towards the future, it seems likely that this nation will be involved in multiple conflicts where our military forces increasingly will be placed in situations where the application of full force capability of our military might not be applied. We will be involved intimately with hostile population in situations where the application of non-lethal force will be the tactical or political preference. It appears likely that there are a number of physical agents that might actively but largely benignly interact or interfere with biological process in an adversary in a manner that will provide our armed forces the tools to control these adversaries without extensive loss of life or property. These physical agents could include acoustic fields, optical fields, electromagnetic fields, and combination thereof. This paper will address only the prospect of physical regulation of biological processes using electromagnetic fields. And I'm not gonna go any further here. You guys can find this document at Earth Pulse, and you guys should read it. Okay, really, really read it. Okay. Also on Earth Pulse Press, you will also find this paper called Synthetic Telepathy and Early Mind Wars, Richard Allen Miller. I've talked about him before. He was a scientist who worked on some of these projects, right, for the military and the CIA. Okay. And, let me read part of the introduction here. I first became aware of Alan Frey's work at Willow Grove in 1972, just after completing the holographic concept of reality. I was working with Dr. Carl Schneider, MRU at the time, and was asked about the significance of his work. Realizing its possible use in mind control, my first reaction was to go on red alert. Full significance was not yet understood at this time. Basically, Frey had discovered another sensory motor input in the higher blue band frequency of 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. At very low amplitudes of power, it was as if we had another type of vision, but did not know how to see what was being received. It constitutes the next generation of subliminal communications. My work at the time was involved with the AI database for paranormal references, Project Parafile. A second paper was also presented at the Omniverse Symposium, California State College at Sonoma. This was titled Embryonic Holography, and was an application of the holographic concept of reality model. It dealt with biogenesis and neurological regeneration, and includes speculation on the origin of cancer, fate healing, psychic surgery, and more technical aspect of mind-body energetics. Okay, let's go to the more interesting part here. Okay. Pulse microwave technology. What Freud found was a single pulse of microwave could be heard by some people as pops or clicks, while a train of uniform pulse could be heard as buzz without benefit of any type of receiver. So basically what they're saying is that, and I talk about silent sound. Silent sound is the more advanced version of these technology and frequency, because what they have done is that they have found the exact frequency in which they can send inaudible commands, words, phrases, sentences, basically co-opt your conscious state, okay, and also program your subconscious, okay. And I'm going to do a video on silent sound spread spectrum technology. So, Dr. Frey also found that a wide range of frequency as low as 125 megahertz, well below microwave, work for some combination of pulse power and pulse width. Detailed, unclassified studies mapped out those frequency and pulse characteristics, which are optimum for generating of microwave hearing. Okay, so what is microwave hearing? It's again silent sound. It is the ability to send command to someone without a receiver. So you don't have to be microchip. The reason we as TIs are microchip is because is when they send those subliminal messages to us, okay, when we're receiving it, we're thinking in our own inner thought pattern, our own inner voice. So now with the microchip and the computer, wireless microchip computer, that can decode the signal going back to see if you get the message or the message was successfully delivered to you. Okay? So, very significantly, when discussing electronic mind control, is the fact that the peak pulse power required is modest, something like 0.3 watts per square centimeter of skull surface, and that this power level is only applied or needed to a very small percentage of each pulse cycle's time. 0.3 watts square centimeter is about what you get on a 250 watt heat lamp at a distance of 1 meter. It is not a lot of power. When you take into account that the pulse train is off, no signal, for most of each cycle, the average power is so low as to be nearly undetectable. This is the concept of spike wave used in radar and other military forms of communication. Frequency that act as voice to skull carriers. And again, voice to skull is another technology that the military created in the CIA, in which, again, now they can send voices. And I say voices because unlike silent sound spread spectrum, in which in that technology you are hearing your own inner thought, voice to skull, what is called V2K, they can basically be anybody's voice. Okay, so you can hear the voice of a man, of a woman, of whatever it is, whoever that is on the other end of the technology that is sending the signal through your brain. And again, it bypasses the the cochlea of your ears, and you hear it directly in your cranium, right? In your brain. Okay. Okay, so frequencies that act as voice to skull carriers are not single frequency, as for example TV or cell phone channels. Each sensitive frequency is actually a range of band of frequencies, a technology used to reduce both interference and detection is called spread spectrum. Okay? So, with spread spectrum, as I'm reading here, so it says what it does is that since it reduces the interference, right? So with spread spectrum now, you have less interference, right? And less detection. And that is called spread spectrum. Spread spectrum signal usually have a carrier frequency hop around within a specific band. Unless a receiver knows this hop schedule in advance, like other forms of encryption, there is virtually no chance of receiving or detecting a coherent, readable signal. And again, this is the reason why we are microchipped. Spectrum analyzers used for detection are receivers with a screen. A spread spectrum signal received on a spectrum analyzer appears as just more static or noise. The actual method of the first successful unclassified voice-to-skull experiment was in 1974 by Dr. Joseph C. Sharp and Mark Grove. Then at the Walter Reed Institute of Research, a Frey-type audible pulse was transmitted every time the voice waveform passed down through the zero axis, a technique easily duplicated by ham radio operators who build their own equipment. The sensation is reported as a buzzing, clicking, or hissing, which seems to originate within or just behind the head. The phenomenon occurs when carrier densities as low as microwatts per square centimeters, with carrier frequencies from 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. By proper choice of pulse characteristics, intelligent speech can be created. Okay. So let's see what we got here. Okay. So this video is about an hour long right now. I'm not going to get into too much more of this. Let's talk about, let me just go through this, which is again silent sound, which I've talked about, or S squad. Silent converted to voice FM. Hypnosis can be transmitted using a voice frequency modulator to generate the voice. It is a steady tone near the high end of hearing range, 1500 hertz, 15,000 hertz, sorry, plus a hypnosis voice varying from 300 to 4,000 hertz. These two signals are frequency modulated. The output now appears as a steady tone, like tetanus, but with hypnosis embedded. The FM voice control the timing of the transmitter's pulse. Each vertical line is one short pulse of microwave signal at a frequency to which the human brain is sensitive. Timing of each microwave pulse is controlled by each downslope crossing of the voice wave. Sharp Method, 1974. Then the brain converts the train of microwave pulse back to inaudible voices. There is no conscious defense possible against this form of hypnosis. And again, I talk about how, I was in a car and, I was waiting for parking, waiting for, it was 10 o'clock so I can leave to go to work, because if I had left before then I would get a ticket. So normally when the street sweeper pass, people will, you could double park, well, bring the car over to the parking side that was just been cleaned, and we just wait until 10, and we'll then you leave the car. I had my laptop up. Okay. All of a sudden I get a command, and this was a long time ago, so I didn't know that it was a command, but it was a command for me to look up. And when I look up, it was a guy riding towards me on a bike, and he had a flashlight in his hands, and he flashed the light, and I woke up, because I was definitely in a trance. When I woke up, I looked at the time, I was like, oh shoot, what happened? It was like the space of like 10 minutes, okay? I was completely gone. And I had my cell phone in between my lap on the car seat. Okay. I look up, after being, brought out of the trance, and, close my laptop, put it in my bag, reached down to get my phone, and my phone wasn't there. Now, the car door was locked, so it's not as if you could have reached in. I could have opened the door and reached in, so I would have had to open the door for him. Okay. Next, got my bag, walked to the train station, went into the T-Mobile store. But before I went into the T-Mobile store, I can't remember if I got a new phone then, because again I had to, go to work. But as I crossed the street to go to the train station, there was a Hispanic man. Okay. When he saw me, he takes his phone out, flash it in front of me, like hold it up so I can see it, and put it back in his pocket. And when I tell you that freaked me out, It did. It really did. Because I looked underneath the car seat for that phone. No phone. No phone. I looked on. I said, well, maybe fell on the side. No phone. Okay. So there is no conscious defense against these types of attacks. It can basically control your mind. It can basically co-opt your conscious mind, take over who you are. Okay? It's the co-opting of our consciousness. So, let's go right. It says a silent, all right. The mind-altering mechanism is based on a subliminal carrier technology, the silent sound spectrum, SSS, sometimes called S squad or squad. It was developed by Dr. Oliver Lowry of Norcross, Georgia, and is described in U.S. patent, blah, 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 a subliminal presentation system. A silent communication system in which non-neural carrier in the very low or very high audio frequency range or in the adjacent ultrasonic frequency spectrum or amplitude or frequency modulated with the desired intelligence and propagated acoustically or vibrationally for inducement into the brain, typically through the use of loudspeakers, earphones, or piezoelectric transducers. Now, the vibrational acoustic, that's what you call today what we know as bone conduction technology. Okay, that's one aspect of it. All right. So the modulated characters can be transmitted directly in real time or may be conveniently recorded and stored on mechanical, magnetic, or optical media for delay or repeated transmission to the listener. According to the literature by Silent Sound Inc., it is now possible using supercomputers to analyze human emotional EEG patterns and replicate them, then store these emotion signature clusters on other computer and at will silently induce and change the emotional state in a human being. So basically what they're saying that they can basically control your emotions. They can make you feel whatever emotion they want you to feel. Okay? So, and it goes on to talk about how the system was used successfully in Desert Storm. Okay? All right. Talk about cloning of emotions, stuff like that. So, and again, and this goes also with the technology and how they can change your sexual preference. Okay? And if you guys read the book by Dr. Robert Duncan, Guinea Pigs, in that book, he talks about that they can do that they've tested it works. And when you start to see, particularly us in the Black community, when you start to see a huge rise in homosexuality, bisexuality within young people and as well as older people, whether they be in their 40s or 50s, I look at it as an attack. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to end this there. And, if I remember, I will include this in the link. Though I always say that, but I never do. But you guys, if you watch the video, I talk about, just go to earthpulse.com. Okay. And, you'll find these documents. All right. So I will speak to you guys on the next Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience.